In this video, I will show you exactly how I used ChatGPT to plan our northern Japan cherry blossom trip. I'll tell you what worked, what I had to change on the way, and the hidden gems that this process led me to. So if you want to elevate your travel planning and plan better trips in less time, keep on watching and let's explore ChatGPT together. To me, ChatGPT has been a valuable tool in my travel planning. I use it to challenge my own opinions, beliefs, and assumptions about traveling and the destinations that I plan to visit. And I think that you could gain quite a lot from my strategies and my do's and don'ts as well. And this could be applicable to any trip. It doesn't have to be Japan and cherry blossoms. Let's get started. First of all, I like asking broad questions. How to spend a week in Tokyo, but I also like to use it for specific itinerary planning and how to prioritize between destinations and concepts. Something that I do not use ChatGPT for and have bad experiences with is getting good flight deals. I get inaccurate pricing, not the best deals. I'm simply better off using Google Flights. I also don't like using ChatGPT to get budget-friendly hotels or accommodation recommendations. I found that the results I get are inaccurate. I know from experience that you can go far lower in budget than what Chat is suggesting. Some of the recommendations I've gotten are also very inaccurate when it comes to pricing. They are already booked and full, not reliable sites at all that I'm not familiar with using. I prefer using sites that I can trust, such as Google Hotels, Hotels.com, Booking.com, Expedia. In my example, I used ChatGPT to plan a 3-week trip to Japan, but I specifically wanted Chat to be responsible for just a certain section of the trip. This trip started in Sapporo with 3 days there, and then we moved on to Morioka, which is a city in northern Japan, where we would be based to see various cherry blossom locations. And then we would move on to Amori, and then to Sendai, and then on to Tokyo. So the first part of the trip, the Sapporo section, was non-negotiable. We wanted to visit that regardless of what ChatGPT said. We were visiting that section for the food. And then we wanted to finish the trip with a week in Tokyo before we flew back to Sweden. But the big section in the middle, that was completely up to ChatGPT, and we let ChatGPT give us their top recommendations. So the first step, if you want to start planning with ChatGPT, is to give it your non-negotiables. What are the necessary requirements for this to work? The first thing would be your travel dates, as well as the duration of your trip. The rest of your non-negotiables. For me, it was starting in Sapporo and spending 3 days there, and ending with a week in Tokyo. And then we had about 10 days in between to play with.
So my first question for ChatGPT was, provide me with an optimized cherry blossom itinerary for Tohoku between 22nd and 29th of April. We'll be arriving from Hakodate on April 22nd and leave for Tokyo on 29th April. So don't count on those days for activities. The last part is very important. Don't count on these 2 days for activities. Otherwise, ChatGPT will start fitting in activities and plan your days around having these 2 extra days as well. In reality, these 2 days will be dedicated to logistics and traveling. You really can't count on those days for exploring. You can see here what ChatGPT answered. He wanted us to start in Hirosaki, one of the most famous cherry blossom areas in Japan, at least in northern Japan, but it's still a lot more of a hidden gem than the cherry blossom spots in southern Japan. So this was a really good recommendation. And then we got my favorite recommendation here, Kitakami Tensochi Park in Iwate Prefecture. This was my ultimate favorite day in Japan. I would not have discovered this without consulting ChatGPT. I highly recommend visiting this area. It was such a cozy vibe, and the Sakura festival was lovely. So many locals there just enjoying their time. And this next one, Shiryoshi River in Miyagi Prefecture. This entire part of the itinerary was unusable because cherry blossom season had already passed. I only found this out because I double-checked the dates and the typical cherry blossom blooming dates. Always double-check ChatGPT, especially when it comes to seasonal events like cherry blossom. If you're planning your whole trip around seeing this and you end up not seeing it because you relied on a tool like ChatGPT, that is a huge financial loss, and you're also not getting what you wanted out of your trip. So just be careful, okay? Another tip that ChatGPT gave us was to utilize the JR Pass for traveling between these cities. I do not know if it is a sponsored agreement between JR and ChatGPT. ChatGPT really likes the JR Pass and wants to sell it, even though it doesn't really make sense. There are calculators available for seeing if buying a JR Pass really makes sense for your trip. In our case, it really didn't, because we compared buying and using a JR Pass for the available period and just buying ticket by ticket as we go. Just buying the tickets are a lot cheaper than entering into a JR Tohoku Hokkaido pass. And it also didn't make sense for the duration of our stays because we wanted a longer, more slow-paced trip than what a JR pass would allow for. So the next question that I wanted to ask ChatGPT is where should we be based to make this itinerary happen? And ChatGPT gave us various suggestions. The first one was to spend one night in Hirosaki. That is a really bad idea because when I was making this search, Hirosaki was completely sold out in terms of relatively budget-friendly hotels. Additionally, this suggests staying one night in Hirosaki. If you have done travel planning before and experienced various itineraries, you will know that spending one night in one place is generally a big no-no. You want to space things out so you can spend at least 3 nights in the same place before you move on to the next. That way you get to settle in your locations and actually explore them properly instead of just jetting between places. I always try to make itineraries that are spaced out, allow for exploration on their own and spontaneous adventures, and not 100% set plan. And that is generally what I recommend when I do travel planning for others too. A lot of online itineraries suggest spending one night in each place, squeezing in as much as you can during your trips. And most people actually want a more soft-paced itinerary than what most itineraries online suggest. So my baseline rule, at least 3 nights in one location. If you're only gonna remember one thing from this video, let it be that. So ChatGPT suggests that we would spend one night in Hirosaki, 2 nights in Morioka or Kitakami, and then 1 night in Sendai, followed by 2 nights in Fukushima. So you can see there, my next prompt was that we wanted to avoid only staying 1 night in hotels. Chat tried to optimize this, and we opted for 3 nights in Morioka instead, and then we did 3 nights in Sendai, which was pretty good. And my next question was related to prioritizing between destinations. Hakodate was slightly inconvenient for us to visit, and it's situated in the southern part of Hokkaido, so we would have to go by train to Hakodate, which takes about 4 hours, and then we would have to take Shinkansen a few days later down to Aomori. But the distance between Aomori and Sapporo is quite complicated when it comes to trains, so I wanted to look into the option of flying directly from Sapporo to Aomori or to Morioka. I had realized that Hokkaido is still quite cold during this time of the year, so we decided that okay, if we go further south instead, then we can get warmer weather, cherry blossoms, and perhaps something even better than Hakodate would be, because Hakodate is also quite complicated in terms of trains in itself. Accommodation in Hakodate was generally quite expensive. I tried to keep hotels under $100 a night as a general baseline, and that was quite hard if you wanted a good location. Turns out that Sendai was that option, so we decided to spend more time there instead, and I'm really happy about that decision because I really loved Sendai as a city. We got this suggestion for how we were gonna use the extra days in Tohoku. We did spend 3 days in Aomori, and we spent our 2 full days in the Hirosaki castle area to properly explore and enjoy the cherry blossoms. We did visit Kakunurate from Morioka, which was about a 1-hour trip, and Chat didn't suggest this at all. I had to come up with that one myself. Chat kept suggesting that we would travel to Kakunurate from Aomori, which is about 2 hours one way, so not realistic at all. And then Chat was completely insane in my opinion and suggested that we would spend 2 nights in Kakunurate and 2 nights in Morioka, which doesn't make sense at all because these 2 places are only an hour away from each other. Instead, it would make a lot of sense for us to base ourselves in Morioka and just do a day trip to Kakunurate. It really took some time for me to figure out that Morioka was a good base for both going to Kakunurate and going south to Kitakami. ChatGPT was confusing me a bit there. It kept saying that we should go to Kakunurate from Aomori instead, which really doesn't make sense when you look at the Shinkansen and train lines, but you have to do that part of the homework yourself. Figure out all the train systems and how you can make the most of them, because Chat is really inaccurate when it comes to this. Chat did a lot of mixing between transportation methods, and as a foreigner in Japan, it is not that common to make use of cars. I mean, you can rent a car, yes. Most people don't rent cars because it is more complicated. I wanted Chat to understand that we did not have a car during this trip. Apparently that was something I had to specify as well, so be specific with your transportation methods and what you want to use. Otherwise, there will be a lot of things that Chat suggests that you aren't able to do. For this part, I just wanted to figure out if 3 days is enough in Aomori. In the end, we ended up doing 3 nights in Aomori, 3 nights in Morioka, followed by 4 nights in Sendai. It was not something Chat suggested. It definitely helped me getting there. It did not provide the final solution. And here I have said to Chat, change to 3 bases and we'll visit Kakunurate as a day trip from Morioka. Great! Now Chat is catching on. And then we have 3 bases, 3 nights in Aomori, 4 nights in Morioka. Chat wanted to dedicate a full day to Morioka city exploration. I thought it was enough with 3 days and that we should allocate that time to Sendai instead, because Sendai is a lot bigger city. But as you can see, we are sort of working our way and getting closer to a final itinerary. Generally, it is just about getting someone else's perspective on the same situation or concept or idea, so you can use that to challenge your own ideas and opinions and to come up with the best possible solution. I mean, it's fantastic for my partner, otherwise I would have discussed a lot of this with him, and he doesn't know for sure either. I got a lot further faster by using ChatGPT. This is a rather complicated itinerary. Most visitors to Japan, they go to Tokyo, they go to Kyoto, and they go to Osaka, and then they go home. With this itinerary, I had to weigh in a lot more considerations. There isn't a lot of information about these places in English widely available. It did take a lot longer, and I had to look at Japanese website and translate them to get proper information on cherry blossom festivals, etc. Then I've just continued to ask questions about Hokkaido, Sapporo, and making my maximized food itinerary for that section of the trip. And if you want to see how it went, I have dedicated videos to Sapporo, Otaru, and all my dessert adventures there. So my general key takeaways for using ChatGPT as a travel planning tool are, first of all, ChatGPT uses the general model that the rest of internet also uses, which is fit as many activities as you can into the allocated amount of days. This is not a nice way to travel. Traveling is usually your vacation time, so you want to actually enjoy the time you're spending. It also doesn't consider the amount of time and effort it takes to go between these places. Something that I really appreciated with using ChatGPT for my travel planning was that Chat helped me prioritize between various destinations. To me, that was really helpful, and it took a lot less time than it would have if I had been searching for that information on my own through Googling, travel blogs, etc. What ChatGPT did not consider is if you had a car or not. And as a tourist, that is really important because usually tourists don't have cars, and getting a car is a whole other story. So that really changes what you are able to do and what you can fit into your itinerary. And I felt that a lot of the suggestions I got from ChatGPT were not realistic without a car. Even if ChatGPT was really good for putting certain destinations and locations on the map for me, I mean, I would not have known about Kitakami Cherry Blossom Festival if Chat hadn't told me about it. You do need to double check if the timing of the events is accurate, because I provided Chat with my travel dates because I wanted this to be very accurate. Still, ChatGPT sort of screwed up the Sendai section. I got cherry blossom recommendations for Sendai, but those dates that I provided are about 2 weeks later than the actual cherry blossom season in the Sendai area, so I totally would have missed the cherry blossom season there if I had actually gone for the Chat recommendations. Be mindful of that and double check if you're planning for seasonal events like I did. And ChatGPT typically refers to general information provided from year to year rather than accurate news or updated information. It did not consider that most hotels in Hirosaki were already full when it suggested us to stay in Hirosaki. I had another conversation with Chat recently about what we should do for our new Japan trip that we are currently planning, and then Chat suggested that, oh, you should go to Okinawa. I know from my previous Japan trips that Okinawa is not a good recommendation for a summer trip because it is typhoon season. If you want a smooth trip, you just don't go to Okinawa during peak summer because it's gonna be windy, stormy, and possibly dangerous as well. Japan is quite prone to natural disasters, and while earthquakes aren't dependent on weather, typhoon season really is. The best region to visit in Japan during summer is generally Hokkaido because it is a lot drier up there than it is the further south you go. Overall, I am very thankful that I used ChatGPT because I did save a lot of time in the planning process of my trip, and ChatGPT did come up with the most wonderful itinerary for one of the days, which was the Kitakami Cherry Blossom Festival, which I would not have known about otherwise. I highly recommend that particular festival if you're going to northern Japan during cherry blossom season, and I will be sharing more videos about my trip to northern Japan for Sakura season. So the big question is, should you use ChatGPT for travel planning? And my wholehearted answer is yes, but use it with caution. First of all, ChatGPT saves you a lot of time and you don't need to sit in front of your computer with multiple windows up trying to navigate everything. For most people who do a lot less complex travel itineraries than I do, it could do the entire job for you. For instance, if you're planning the typical Japan trip which starts and ends in Tokyo with a pit stop in Osaka and Kyoto in the middle, then you could have the entire job done for you within 5 minutes. But if you want to do more complex things, ChatGPT generally helps, but you should not be completely reliant on it. Repeat the questions that you don't feel like they're getting addressed, because ChatGPT does have a problem with addressing every single thing that you're asking for, especially when you're asking complex long questions. And also make sure that you are specific in your prompts. Tell them your dates, tell them the month you're visiting, what you want to get out of your trip, what your food preferences are. In that way, it is kind of similar to search engine optimization. So if you don't use the relevant keywords, you will get lower quality responses. Make sure that you think outside the box, because ChatGPT is not going to do that for you, and do your own research on the site, because otherwise you may end up going to a cherry blossom trip without having cherry blossoms, just like I almost did. So that is it for this video. I hope you found it useful and that you will be trying out ChatGPT to plan your future travels. Comment below to let us know how it works out for you, and we can use this as a reference to get the most value out of ChatGPT as a travel tool together. And if you want to see more Japan and more travel tips from me, make sure to check out my Japan playlist and subscribe for more. Bye!